Hey guys, Justin from Paddle Angler in the shed. My wife has decided that she would like to install a rod holder on her kayak because she doesn't actually have a rod holder at all on here. So stay tuned for that video coming up soon. But in the meantime, I've had quite a few questions about kayak rod holders, the types of rod holders, how do we fit them, what do we got to think of when we're installing them. So in this video, I just want to cover why we put rod holders on the kayak, the different types that are available, some key things to remember when you are installing rod holders on your kayak, and just a few tips as we go along. So stay tuned. This is a basic introduction to kayak rod holders. So firstly, why would we put rod holders on our kayak? There's actually a variety of reasons why people do put rod holders on their kayak. So firstly, it may purely be for storage and transporting of the rods on the way to the water, and also while you're out there changing between spots and that sort of thing. So it can be transport and storage. It can be to fish from the kayak. So whether you're bait fishing or trolling or whatever you might be doing, you know, you can fish from the kayak using that rod holder, which allows you to use multiple rods and that sort of thing when you are fishing. It's also handy to be able to stow the rod out of the way when you're paddling or pedaling between spots, and also just in terms of rigging. So where do I put my rod? I don't want the reel to get wet or anything like that. I can put it in a rod holder and I can rig up ready for fishing. So there's a bunch of different reasons why we put rod holders on kayaks, but it is one of the most common accessories that we fit to our kayaks first up. So let's have a look at some different types of rod holders for kayaks. So today we're going to talk about 4 different types of rod holders that you can fit to your kayak: flush mount, adjustable rod holders, vertical rod holders, and also horizontal rod storage. So different storage for different applications. So one of the most common ones that you'll find on a kayak, as kayaks have become more kayak fishing tools and kayak fishing has become more popular, when you buy a kayak now, a lot of them will have flush mount rod holders already mounted in the kayak. So these flush mount rod holders are great because they're strong, and they're also very low profile, which is excellent for loading kayaks, often on the roof of cars, and transiting through the bush and portaging and all that sort of thing. So they're flush mount, they're very low mount to the deck, and they're also nice and strong. So you can put the rod holder in there, you can troll with those, you can store your rods in them and all of that sort of thing. You'll generally find there's fore and aft rod holders flush mount. So there's some behind the seat, and when they're behind the seat, they're generally used to stow your rods when you're traveling between spots and portaging to the water and all that sort of thing. So behind your seat, you can't see the rod, so that's generally for storage. In front of your seat is generally for fishing. So that's going to be in the way of your paddle stroke there. So it's primarily for fishing, rigging, whether you're bait fishing or whether you're trolling. So storage in the back, fishing in the front with those flush mount rod holders. You can add more flush mount rod holders to your yak, and we'll talk a bit about that. Probably one of the main downsides I see with these flush mount rod holders is your reels are very close to the water. So there's not much between the water and our reel there. So if there's a bit of wave action and that sort of thing, your reels can get wet. So what you can do is you can get a piece of pipe that fits into your rod holder, and you can insert that into your rod holder and then insert your rod into the piece of pipe. Or there are also rod extensions available. So if you look up kayak rod holder extension, you'll find extensions which are nice and secure to go in. They've normally got a clip set up on where you can clip it to secure it in there as well, and an attachment point for a leash to leash your rod on. So the old saying is leash it or lose it. So check out those rod holder extensions as well for those flush mount rod holders if you do want to get those rods up a bit higher, especially for those that are going out into the blue water and that sort of thing where there's a lot more wave and turbulent action out there. When you look at adding flush mount rod holders, which you can do, there's a few things that you need to remember. So for example, on Sherry's yak here, we've got a pad here. So there's a flat point here, there's a flat point here. So there's a few different points that are already positioned there for mounting flush mount rod holders or other rod holders. So you need to think about where on the kayak you're going to mount that flush mount rod holder if you are going to add them, because there's a few tricks. Straight up, you've got to put quite a large hole in your kayak to fit that rod holder in there. So it's going to, a couple of inches, probably 2-inch hole in your kayak to put that pipe in there. You also need to consider whatever type of rod holder you're mounting, access to where you want to mount it. So you'll see commonly, like on this yak here, here's a hatch, here's a flush mount rod holder, here's a hatch, here's a flush mount rod holder. So that hatch allows us access to mount this rod holder properly. So we're using marine grade stainless steel bolts with lock nuts on the inside of them as well. So if you cannot access that through a hatch, if you don't have access, you need to consider where you're going to put it. If we didn't have a hatch access here, you're going to need to use marine grade stainless steel screws to fix that in, or you're going to need what I call kayak rivets. So if you Google kayak rivets, it's like an exploding rivet, pop rivet that opens up inside there and secures that rod holder in place. So generally I'll mark and drill that hole, put silicone around inside that, and then drop it in and fix it. The worst mistake I've probably seen someone make is they actually decided where they wanted it, they drilled the hole, and then they couldn't put the rod holder in there because of the angle of the rod holder that it needed to sit at and some internal structure of the kayak. So that's why it's great if you've got access with a hatch, so you can have a good clear look inside there, because when you go to put that rod holder in there, you need to make sure that it's going to fit on the angle you want it, and it's going to fit in there and clear as well. Also, you'll notice with flush mount rod holders, some of them have got a hole in the bottom of the rod holder, so that on a boat, if you get water in there, the water drains out the bottom. In a kayak, we don't want that water draining inside the kayak. So the rod holder, flush mount rod holder, should be sealed in the bottom, or you should be able to seal it in the bottom so the water can't get into the rod holder and then inside your kayak as well. So that's just a little bit on flush mount rod holders. Let's have a look at one of the most popular options, which is adjustable rod holders. All right, so adjustable rod holders. I've got quite a few of these guys in my kit. This is a Railblazer adjustable rod holder. So basically, the adjustability comes in the fact that we can adjust that rod holder 360 degrees, and also we've got adjustment on the side here so that we can adjust the height of that rod holder up and down as well. So we can make that from horizontal to vertical, anywhere in between. So there's a lot of options in that adjustability of that rod holder. So they are very popular, and most of them are removable as well. So with this Railblazer setup here, we basically use what's called a starport mount. So instead of having to cut a big hole, we can just fix with 2 bolts, and basically we can fit that in place. Again, it's fairly flush in terms of its mounting. We can drop this rod holder in wherever we want it. Oh, we've got to unlock our mount. So we unlock it, drop our rod holder in, lock our mount, and we're ready to go. So basically that allows you to adjust this rod holder in any direction you want for whatever you want to use it for, and it also allows you to unlock it and remove it. So a very neat piece of kit. So that's a starport mount that mounts onto the kayak. As you can see, that's configured like a star. Drop it in, lock it in place, and it's locked on securely onto your deck. So a nice sturdy system for mounting it. The great thing about it is there's also a variety of ports. So that's what's called a side port, and it mounts sideways. So if we wanted to mount the rod holder in the rear well, we can mount that port basically sideways like that and put our rod holder in. So we can mount sideways, we can mount flush on top. We can also mount on, if you've got gear tracks, so you'll see some kayaks actually have a track system on them, and that track system allows you to slide accessories in and out and mount them in that track. So that's a really good system as well. And again, you've got that system there where you can drop that rod holder in to that track system and take it in and out. So adjustable rod holder is very popular because we can pretty much put a mount anywhere. And wherever we put that mount, we can then put a rod holder. We can adjust it to any angle, and we can also remove it for when we're wanting to load our kayak on the car and that sort of thing, so that the rod holder is out of the way. The other cool thing is, wherever we've got that, there's a whole stack of other accessories. So, you know, we can put a drink bottle holder or a cup holder. We can put a stove pod, you know, like a little glove box or something where we want to put a few packets of Z-Man, a few jig heads, whatever we want to put in there, a bit of scent, and keep it handy. So that's a great system. And that adjustable rod holder, you can pretty much put at the front, you can put it at the back, you can put it anywhere that you like on the kayak just by mounting that setup there. Again, if we've got access internally, we can use marine grade stainless steel bolts with our lock nuts on them, or if you've just got normal nuts, you can use 2 nuts and lock one onto the other, or just get a bit of silicone and put a bit of silicone on the end. So I'll normally mark my holes. I'll drill the holes using our system here. So I'll just pull this out and I'll use the bottom piece there to mark the holes, drill the holes, put a bit of silicone on there, put that guy on there, and then we're just basically fixing 2 bolts. Again, you've got that option of screws. So that's our adjustable rod holder, one of the most popular, and it allows you to pretty much put them wherever you want them on the kayak as well, and remove them if you don't want them. You can also, if you've got the Railblazer set up with your adjustable rod holder, you can switch them from one kayak to another, or to your canoe, or to your boat, or to other vessels as well with that starport system. Alright, now that we've spoken about 2 of the different types of rod holders, which is the flush mount rod holder and also the adjustable rod holder, let's talk about some key things that you need to consider when you are mounting a rod holder before we talk about the other 2. So, for instance, in the kayak here, we're going to put a rod holder on Sherry's kayak. What are the key things that we need to consider? Sherry needs to be able to reach it. So we don't want to put it too far forward or too far back. We need to be able to reach the rod holder so that we can use it. So that's going to bring it close to us. But it needs to be far enough away from us and out of the way so that it doesn't impact our paddle stroke or our pedaling. You know, you don't want your rod butt coming across where your pedal works. So we need to consider where we're mounting it. It needs to be within reach, but it needs to not interfere with our pedaling or paddling. It also needs to be out of the way in terms of our casting and fishing and all that sort of thing, so it's not interfering with our fishing. Also, other things to consider, it's important to think about getting in and out of the kayak, whether it's getting in and out at the start, or if you fall in the water, can I get back into the kayak, or is this rod holder going to cause me grief? So yeah, considerations include reach, not being in the way for paddling or pedaling, not being in the way for fishing, ease of getting in and out of the kayak, and also, as we said before, access to where you're going to fit it based on where hatches and that sort of thing are in the kayak, so that we can get a good secure fitting, and also so that we can ensure that it's, you know, it's not on a rounded section or something where it's not going to fit nice. Look for those flat pads that are pretty much designed for mounting a rod holder or other accessories. So this is commonly used for stowing rods behind you. So basically, you know, you might want to carry 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rods with you at once. So for me, when I'm fishing out in the flats and that sort of thing, I'll often carry 4 rods with me as a minimum, and that allows me to run some different Z-Man plastics to suit the fishing that I'm doing. So I might have, you know, a light Ned rig setup, I might have a 1/4 ounce jig head, a 3/8 ounce jig head, and then I might have a 1/2 ounce, and then I'm pretty well covered from the flats into deep water. Or if I'm just fishing the flats, I might have a few different plastic options, so like a 2.5 inch grubs, 2.5 inch slim swims, and instead of having to chop and re-rig, all I do is switch it up and grab a different rod from behind me. So a lot of the time you'll see something like that attached to a milk crate, a live well, an ice box in the back of the kayak behind the angler. So remember, you need to be able to reach to get those rods out of there comfortably and to stow them again. And also they need to be out of your way when you're fishing. So if they're directly right behind you, they normally are out of your way when you're casting and fighting fish, but it allows you to stow a few rods there. So, you know, boom, there we go. I can attach that, rivet, you know, marine grade stuff, stainless steel, that sort of thing. I can screw it in there or whatever, and I can mount multiple rod holders to my icebox, 2 on each side. I can still access the icebox to throw a fish in there if I want to access food and drink, and I can attach a couple of rod holders to each side. So lots of different options available. There's also options like this, depending on the ice box that you run. If you are running an ice box, some ice boxes actually have rod holders that can be attached to them automatically ready to go. So remember, whether it's a live well, milk crate, ice box, whatever it is, you can attach rods and stow them behind your seat, easy access, so that you can carry multiple rods with you. This is a design I've had on my yak for quite a while. So this has been really cool for me. So this is basically, I mean, a bit of investment initially, but this is just bulletproof, this thing, and has lasted for a long time. So on there, I've got 4 Railblazer rod holders mounted on there. So the cool thing with that, I can also take them out. I can use them on other yaks and boats and all that sort of thing if I want to. And I've got this dashboard here. So I've basically got a dashboard with 4 rod holders on. in that railblazer setup. And all I do, I've got 2 starport mounts on the back of the kayak here. So I simply just drop that system in there, clip it in place, and there we go. I've got 4 rod holder ports on there. I can drop my rods in, and I've also got the ability to just slide that around and lock reels in place. So they're in there nice and secure, but if I need to get them, I can easily get them out, reach around behind me, swap rods, and away we go. So that's some horizontal rod storage. The cool thing about it is, because you're storing the rods horizontally, you can store a bunch of rods. So in that little bit of space there, I've got 4 rods stowed. Around that icebox, I could easily have 2 or 3 either side, so I can carry a lot of rods with me. The downsides is that vertical height. So if you're dragging your kayak through tight country, you know, you've got mangroves, you've got canals, anything overhanging that's going to catch these rods can cause you a problem. So for me, I do a lot of just river, estuary, flat stuff. I'm out in open water, so it's fine having the rods like that. If you're creek bashing and all that sort of thing, you're going to have to look at the next type of rod storage. All right, so we've talked about flush mount rod holders and why they're cool and that sort of thing. We've talked about our adjustable rod holders and their versatility, and we've talked about storing our rods vertically. But if you're launching down creek banks, you're fishing overhanging vegetation in real tight country, those tight bass creeks and all that sort of thing, you can't have rods sticking up because it's going to drive you crazy. Rods are going to get stuck in trees, lures are going to get stuck in trees, it's dangerous, and you're also likely to lose gear getting ripped out of the kayak. So in that case, you want to store your rods horizontally. The downsides of storing them horizontally is that they take up more room, and also on low sort of profile kayaks like this, a lot of the time they're again close to the water and that sort of thing. So there's a variety of systems available, whether it's something as simple as like, you know, a bungee cord that locks rods in place horizontally. There's some where rods clip in. You can again use these guys and mount them vertically, so that horizontally, so that your rods are sitting horizontally with that adjustable rod holder. The key thing with it is, again, it allows you to carry multiple rods, but it does take up more room and you need to be careful in terms of water and stuff. You will find a lot of the Hobies and those higher end sort of tournament kayaks are really designed well for horizontal rod storage. So they're set up so that you can carry multiple rods in the sides of the larger kayaks, and it's perfect for accessing for fishing tournaments and that sort of thing. You know, you can have 2, 4, 6 rods ready to go, ready to fish. The tips are slotted into tip protectors. The rods hook in beautifully, and you've got horizontal rod storage for 4, 6 rods. Plenty of rods for fishing, a few different options out on the flats. So that's horizontal rod storage, which is another option for you to explore, whether it be with adjustable rod holders, bungee cord, or the clip-in system and those sorts of things that you can get to stow your rods horizontally on the kayak. So there you go, that's a quick look at a selection of rod holders for your kayak setup for fishing. Also a look at some key things to consider when you are setting up for kayak fishing with those different types of rod holders. So a lot of those rod holders will come with templates that help you to mark out where you're going to put them and that sort of thing. Remember to consider what's inside and what access you have. The old saying, measure twice, cut once, cut or drill once. So always make sure you're measuring right before you make that decision and try and mount that thing on there. I'll often tape with heavy duty tape a rod holder in place, like an adjustable rod holder. Get out there, make sure I can paddle, make sure I can fish and everything's okay. If I like where it is, I'll come back in and set it up. Otherwise, I'll adjust it slightly and then fix it in there. So there you go. That is it from us at Paddle Angler on a basic 2 kayak rod holders. Make sure you like, give us a subscribe, and also if you've got anything you'd like to add for other kayak anglers out there in terms of rod holders, you can comment down below as well. So stay tuned, more videos coming soon. All the best with the fishing.